Hey everyone, welcome to the Roto Grinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevie TPFL. It's August 12th. It's Friday. We have 14 baseball games tonight. A lot to talk about. Finally, some pitching. Last couple of days, it's been up and down what type of pitchers we wanted to take. And there's nothing like a Friday without some cheese. And how you doing, Cheese?
I'm doing great. This is a good slate to get to talk about. There's been some duds out there, but this looks like a good one.
Yes, man. I'm excited about this slate for sure. It's going to be very, very interesting. But before we talk about the slate, we got to talk about our sponsor over on fantasydraft.com. If you guys haven't checked out Fantasy Draft, they sponsor the podcast Monday through Friday. So make sure you guys are checking them out over there on Draft. Use promo code Grinders. That way you get incentives here at Roto Grinders for free for a year for Fantasy Draft. And you get a 100% deposit bonus up to $600. Check them out. Bunch of cash games, bunch of tournaments, and their $5,000 home run tonight, only a 6-entry max, so pretty level playing field there. So make sure you guys are checking that out. Let's start it off here with Tampa at New York. Hottest game of the night, and we get to lead off with it. Chris Archer, CC Sabathia, and Alex Rodriguez's last game as a pro.
That's about time, isn't it? It's gonna be fun to watch. I mean, whether you love him or hate him or think he's still good or terrible, it's a big deal, and it's something you probably want to watch at least a little bit of. From the perspective of the game, it should be a good one. Archer looks like he's pretty much back to close to where he was last year. I think we can start looking at him as an ace again.
Yeah, his last few games, and we look at it and it's like, where was Chris Archer? And we see this from time to time with pitchers. It happens, and we're looking at Archer now, and even in his last 6 starts, at least 6 innings in all those starts. A couple games there, he got beat up a little bit by Baltimore and Boston, but it seems like this is Archer that we've just come to know.
Yeah, he's really close to as good as he was last year now. And, knowing that last year was probably everything went right, he's not going to be that good over a whole season, maybe ever again, even if he's all the way back. But this is a guy who's looked relatively consistent, and we know definitely the upside can match anybody's.
Do you like him here against the Yankees?
I do. I think it's a decent spot. They don't generally strike out a lot, but he's one of those guys that when he's on his game, he can really rack up 10 strikeouts against anybody. And while they don't strike out, they're also not really a very powerful offense at this point either. So they're, one of the things you're worried about with Archer is maybe giving up a bunch of home runs, and certainly the ballpark doesn't help him, but I think his upside outweighs his downside here.
Now, CC Sabathia, have we just come to the point where we don't take left-handed pitchers against the Rays?
Pretty close. I mean, there are certainly not one who's just kind of pretty good. Like Sabathia I wouldn't say fallen apart, but he was really good at the beginning of the year. Now he's looked like kind of what we thought he would. He's given up, I think, 2 home runs, 3 games in a row, and he's walking some guys now. I don't think this is a spot you even want to consider him.
Yeah, a guy that, the thing is, like, I know you're into it too. We like hard contact rates, and his hard contact rate is down this season against righties. So, I'm not going to go out and just stack the Rays against CC Sabathia. I'm going to play some one-offs, but I don't think this is a spot that I'm going to necessarily stack the Rays.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, there's definitely something good going on with Sabathia's skill set this year as far as the hard hits. And Tampa's not really a stacking team most of the time anyway. You're more, they do have a lot of strikeouts in that lineup. So I don't like to stack a team that I feel like has a bunch of guys with high strikeout rates that are going to kill a rally. But there's all kinds of power potential here. So I would certainly look for some one-offs or mini stack with power potential.
So let's look at these Rays bats. We talked about one-off guys. Logan Forsythe, obviously one of those guys that is a one-off play here, but he's priced so high on FanDuel and Fantasy Draft. I don't know if I'm going to necessarily pay this price tag.
Yeah, I don't think you need to reach for anything. I think there's going to be enough hitters that you don't need to feel like you're overpaying for something. I agree, just just the matchup in general, without looking at the price, is something you would want. But I don't think he's like the clear top of the pool either. So I don't think you need to overpay for him.
Do you like anybody here for the Rays?
I'm always interested in Longoria. I think the team's kind of shifted, whereas some of the guys have been wanting to roster are actually the lefties now, but who you don't really want to take against Sabathia. Some of the power guys like Souza, maybe depending on who's in the lineup, if like Tim Beckham's playing, like some of these guys that are just going to go overlooked and wouldn't even be in Tampa stacks are interesting because I expect them to hit some home runs. But really, it's just Longoria and Forsythe that kind of stick out to me.
I'm with you. I don't really play Souza against lefties. I know the platoon split is there, but when we're looking at Souza's numbers, a 70 WRC plus against lefties this season with a 40% strikeout rate, like that, I would rather take a shot on, like you said, Longoria, Forsythe. Let's talk Yankees here. Any Yankees bats? And we got to mention Alex Rodriguez, $696 on FanDuel here.
Yeah. Don't take him for free, probably even. I don't really see myself playing any Yankees bats. If I did, it would be McCann, just because he's the guy that seems most likely to hit a home run. That's really all you're looking for. You're not going to try to, pick up a bunch of singles or, who's going to get 3 hits against Archer. You just want someone who can hit it out. And McCann's swing is best suited for that park. And specifically against Archer, I think it matches up pretty well.
Yeah. A-Rod. How many teams would you have to build to play A-Rod? Because he's going to be in the lineup. There's no way, they did this for a reason. It's Friday. It's Yankee Stadium. They announced it a week ago that this is going to be his last game. He's going to be in the lineup. FanDuel putting him at $696 because of his home run total in his career. Like, how many teams would you have to build before you play A-Rod?
Well, the thing is, he's going to fit in there nicely.
Every time.
When you don't know what else to do, you're like, oh, well, look what I can do if I go here. And because of that, like, if I feel like he's going to be really chalky, which he might be, I don't even know. I probably just wouldn't take any. But at the same time, it's kind of like I said tonight, or last night with him, like, all he's going to try to do is hit a home run.
100%.
And
he's swinging for a fence no matter what.
And, any player at any time that that's all they're trying to do, I guess does have some upside, because generally guys going up there and they're playing to the at-bat, looking for certain pitches. When he's just trying to hit a home run, he can still hit a home run. So I guess it's certainly pretty reasonable. I don't like when they goof around with prices like that.
Yeah, it's annoying. I agree. Let's move on. Colorado at Philadelphia, John Gray, Jake Thompson. If you've listened to the podcast before, you obviously know that I like John Gray a lot, and this is a good spot for him here against Philadelphia.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see. I mean, I think Gray, where he's priced, he could end up being the most popular pitcher because all these studs are really expensive. And, Gray's numbers are close. He's got really good strikeout ability in any matchup, really, but especially against this Phillies team. I think he's going to be a popular choice just because of that price and the matchup. And there's really nothing to quibble with in his skill set. Like, he's definitely for real.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, on Fantasy Draft, he's 17-4. I think he's too cheap on Fantasy Draft. I think he's too cheap on DraftKings. And honestly, at 8,300 on FanDuel, I think he's too cheap there because I think this is an excellent matchup. And Jake Thompson on the other side of the ball here, he struggled in his debut against San Diego. What do we do here with Thompson?
I think you just stack against him and just think that maybe he's just not ready to be a major league pitcher. Like, I think he's going to be pretty good. I kind of like him long-term as a prospect, but he's had a big drop in his strikeout rate. and he didn't look good the first start. I think it's pretty reasonable to load up against him and hope that either he's just ineffective and gives up a bunch of hits, or they at least make it hard enough to get into that bullpen, and the bullpen's not really strong. I think there's a lot of paths to success for the Rockies.
All right, let's talk Rockies bats. Our favorite cheap play of the podcast for the last week and a half, David Dahl has finally come up in price on DraftKings and Fantasy Draft. Kind of disappointing. I was enjoying playing him at 3K on DraftKings every day, but I think he's still in play here because this guy he's hitting everything, and I love guys like this.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to argue with what he's doing, and it looks like they're going to keep hitting him basically in the middle of the lineup, especially if Gonzalez doesn't play again. He could be hitting fourth or fifth, and I don't think he's this good. I think there's a lot of fluke going on, but certainly if you're stacking the Rockies, it would probably be silly to do it without him. Blackmon and Arenado are the guys I really want, but he would be next in line, certainly if Cargo's out.
Yeah, Cargo actually pinch hit in Thursday's game, in that day game, so it wouldn't shock me. And Mark Reynolds is hurt now and expected to go on the DL, so they could even be really lenient with Cargo, and he could end up at first base with all the healthy outfielders they have now.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Has he ever done that before?
I don't know. It's just like a hunch. You know how you have those hunches? They don't have, who they have.
It would be Descalso or something now.
Why not get Cargo and leave Parra and those guys in the outfield?
Yeah, that might. If he could play there, that would make a lot of sense. Save his body a little bit because they have with Parra back. Yeah, they have plenty of outfielders now. But I really do like the Colorado bats.
I'm with you there. I'm going to have a lot of gray, so I'll probably have a hedge Philly stack somewhere. But what's your thoughts here on the Phillies in general?
I don't see much reason to play anybody. They've got some power. You can always see a Joseph or a Franco or someone hit something. Herrera is kind of the only hitter that sort of matches up okay, but I don't think there's much reason to play Phillies bats.
Atlanta at Washington, Steven Strasburg, Mike Foltynewicz. Strasburg against Atlanta. I don't like taking righties against Atlanta, but Steven Strasburg's kind of on another level.
He is, he just looks great. I don't mind taking him pretty much anywhere right now. Even when he's gotten hit, the strikeouts are still there, so he's still giving you pretty good fantasy output. And, it's funny with the Braves against righties. Occasionally, mostly it's just that they're not striking out. Occasionally they've gotten some runs on the board. They've had a few big games recently. But I also don't want to avoid a pitcher because of some low-ceiling contact hitters. You're not afraid of Ender Inciarte and Nick Markakis. Sure, it lowers his strikeout upside a little bit. But kind of like we were saying with Archer, when he's on his game, he's going to strike out whoever he wants to. So I think he's obviously very much in play.
Oh, yeah. I'm with you. Foltynewicz is a guy that I like. I don't know about this matchup. If Harper's out of the lineup, then we're not too worried. But there's still a strong 4 or 5 here at the top of this order.
Yeah, I can't. I don't think I can make a case for playing him on a slate that's this loaded with pitching.
Yeah.
He does have upside. He's pretty good against righties, and obviously they've got a lot of righties. But he's just so far below so many other pitchers tonight. I don't see any reason to go there.
Yeah, 4 or 5 game slate, and this is one of the matchups. I think that I would roll him out there, but I think I agree with you. 14 game slate. We have a ton of pitching options. Not necessarily the spot. Now, Atlanta bats against Strasburg. Anything that you like here?
No. Sure, you could play Freddie Freeman because Freeman's hitting the ball well, but there's 4 or 5 teams against these aces that I think it's pretty easy to just write off completely, and Atlanta would be at the top of that list.
Freeman actually has some decent BVP against Strasburg if you're into that thing.
BVP alert.
Yep. If you're into that thing, Longoria against CC Sabathia too. I remember that. I think his BVP against Sabathia is just insane.
I would believe that.
Yeah. Washington bats. Daniel Murphy has to be at the top of our list here, right?
Jeez, yeah, that guy's so good. Like his numbers are silly good against righties. I mean, it's like very elite territory. He's definitely one of my top overall plays of the day. Like, Fulte is pretty well known for having big splits, and a lefty like Murphy has all kinds of upside, good floor for cash games. I mean, I think you can use him anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah, I'm a huge Murphy fan too. Like, we're talking about a second baseman that is just he's in the top 22 against right-handed pitching in ISO this season, and he's a second baseman. Like that shouldn't happen, and it's just insane. Outside of him, we have Worth, we have Turner. Ramos is always a guy that I like to play if I'm playing cash games because he's just a safe option in my opinion.
Yeah, his contact rate is really good. He's getting on base, he's hitting the ball pretty hard. Yeah, and he hits in the middle of the lineup. There's not a lot of catchers left anymore that have reasonable lineup spots on good teams, much less ones that have good contact rates. So, yeah, I think he's reasonable. For the most part, outside of Murphy, and if Harper plays, I don't think I'm going to really look to play these right-handed bats. I expect them to, get something done against Fulte, but I don't know exactly who it's going to be. So most of those guys are people I would want to play against lefties. They're certainly fine to stack, and you could play a Worth and a Rendon and Trey Turner and guys like that, but pretty much it's Murphy and Harper and maybe Ramos, and everything else would be stack only for me.
Houston at Toronto. This is a good baseball game. Francisco Liriano, Joe Musgrove. No, right? We're not taking these pitchers, right?
I would say let's not. I mean, Musgrove might be good. You know what I mean? Like if you look at his minor league numbers, like he might be a good pitcher, and he looked good in that last start. But you're not going to throw a rookie at Toronto. I just think that's wrong.
We did in Houston. If you did, he went 4 1/3 with 1 hit, 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts against Toronto in his debut. They've seen him, and they've seen him really recent now. Like it's only been a couple weeks. I actually think Toronto might go under owned because of that, and I think they're an excellent stack here.
Yeah, I would much rather be on the Toronto side than the Musgrove side. And I think people will look at, like you say, look at those numbers and want to stay away from Houston bats. Because it is, even though it's only, 11 innings, I mean, it is great-looking numbers.
Yeah.
But, like the first time a team sees a pitcher, the pitcher has the advantage. But now that they've seen him, I wouldn't be surprised if they got after him a little bit.
All right. Let's talk bats. We'll start with Houston. Man, I think this is a game stack. I really do. I like the Houston stack. Jose Altuve. Jose Altuve might be the best player in baseball. And I don't even feel wrong about saying that anymore. The guy's just insane. Yeah,
it's silly. Like, I didn't think, I think last year we were all thinking, this power's a fluke, come back. Well, the power is actually, it just keeps getting better, and the speed's not decreasing, and the contacts and the walks and the average are not decreasing. Yeah, he's just really good at everything. There's absolutely no flaw in his skill set, especially against lefties. He makes contact, he takes walks, he hits for power, he hits for speed, he hits for average, he hits the ball hard. He can do whatever he wants.
Yeah, like his on-base percentage against lefties this season is .469. Like, that's just insane. And his OPS is 1.098. Like, a guy that's getting on base like that has this type of power, it's just crazy. And I know he's expensive, but in cash games, I just don't see a reason not to play him here.
Yeah, he's most days he's the safest cash game player at any position. Like, he's normally you would expect to see like an outfielder or maybe a first baseman have this kind of skill set. And he's just great. So, play him if you can.
I'll take a 3K first baseman and take a 4K second baseman, and I'll have way ahead of the field with Altuve just every day.
Yep.
Outside of Altuve, though, Correa, Springer, I think these guys are definitely in play here.
Yep. with Liriano, you never know exactly what you're getting, and you never know if you're getting just a bunch of walks or a bunch of balls right down the middle that they can hit. Springer I like because he's one of the guys that's willing to take a walk if his control is off, but he's also got the power to do damage. And then pretty much everyone else on this team, Correa, Gaddis, whoever else played, we don't know exactly who will be in the lineup. They all have power that you can look for either as one-offs or as part of a stack. Yeah, I think you can go all in on both sides of this game, like you were saying, or pick a side, or even pick a spot. Like, there's so much to like.
Toronto bats, another stack, obviously, but if you had to play a one-off here for Toronto, who would it be? Put you on the spot.
Yeah, I think I would go. The default answer would be Saunders. Get a lefty in there, but I really like anytime I can get Josh Donaldson where people aren't going to be on him. That's always the spot I want. He's just like, there's been a few hitters we've talked about that are just crazy elite, and he's one of them. And it's not just against lefties, it's against righties too. And I think because it's a righty who's, looked good, I think this will be one of the lowest owned you'd be able to get Donaldson. So for that reason, I think that's where I'd go.
Looking at Saunders on Fantasy Draft, 6,600. That means he's right around 3,300 on DraftKings. Like, that's just a solid price. E5, 8K on Fantasy Draft. These guys are priced where you can play them, and I'm going to be playing them quite a bit here. Let's move on. San Diego at New York taking on the Mets. Logan Verrett, Paul Clemens. We talked about pitching options. Now we can talk about some bats.
Yeah, this is not the elite pitching matchup of the day. Clemens, yikes. I know, I'm pretty sure he hasn't gone over 5 innings all year, and he's not really striking anybody out. The Mets it's not an exciting offense by any stretch, but they've got enough guys that can do some damage. I think you can load up Mets. And same thing, like nobody really wants to play San Diego bats. But Verrett doesn't strike anybody out. He walks guys, gives up hard hits. Neither of them have any real skill in limiting ground balls or fly balls. It's kind of just throw the ball up there and see what happens.
I have to beg to differ, Dave. I like playing San Diego bats. I probably play Alex Dickerson and Ryan Schimpf more than everybody in DFS.
Alex Dickerson is pretty. I mean, Schimpf, I think everybody knows about now. Dickerson's a good player. I don't mind that. I don't know if I've played him. I think I played him once, but yeah, I think you're onto something there. He's a good hitter.
Jankowski, if he's in the leadoff spot, and I think the one sneaky option here is Will Myers, because you always have to pay up for Myers. And what we've seen for Verrett so far is a little bit of home run issues to righties, and that hard contact and medium contact rate are right there where Will Myers can blast one out here.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that you're always going to be alone on, especially against a righty. And yeah, you're right. His power is good against anybody. Verrett, you're not expecting much out of him. Most of the bullpen is beatable. Yeah, I'm not going to chase after Myers, but if you're making a few lineups and want to differentiate at first base, yeah, nobody ever plays Myers.
Now, picking on Paul Clemens here, you mentioned low strikeout rates. Jay Bruce, a guy that does tend to strike out, but when he has a guy that he's facing that doesn't have a big strikeout rate, is this a spot we could target Bruce?
Yeah, I think it is. Really, all of those lefty bats can hit for power. I definitely, pretty much all these guys, Bruce and Granderson, Walker, Conforto, whoever's in the lineup, they all strike out more than you would want. But yeah, when it's a guy that just has no strikeout ability, all these guys have home run power. So I would be looking. You can take all these guys as one-offs. I don't know if I want to stack the Mets, but I definitely would fish for some power here.
All right, let's move on. We'll look at this next game, which always for me. Arizona at Boston. David Price, Patrick Corbin, lefty, and as far as WRC Plus goes, these two teams both in the top 5 as a team against left-handed pitching this season.
Yeah, I mean, Boston has to be the most popular play. I would expect them to have the highest team total. I haven't checked the team totals, but Corbin has just not been good, and I thought he was going to be. I'm more disappointed in him than almost anybody this year, and yeah, Boston is even better against righties, but they're actually really great against lefties too. Corbin is not good against righties. Gives up a lot of hard contact with low strikeouts, and even against lefties, he does get strikeouts, but everything else is bad. So there's really not a single player on Boston that you can't take.
Fun fact of the day, Cheese. So 2002 was 2012 was my first article here at Roto-Grinders. Patrick Corbin was in that article to Target. So you want to talk about full circle? It's coming for full circle here. We're gonna like some of these bats. Let's talk. What about Price? Can we play Price here in this matchup?
I'm gonna say yes, because when you look at Strasburg and Archer and some other guys we're going to talk about, Price should be kind of the under-owned ace, but we can quibble about whether he's an ace right now or not. This last little stretch he's been on, it's almost all been on the road, which I don't know why that should matter for him, but it's gotten pretty questionable. The strikeouts have just dropped dramatically. But we know he has that ability. I mean, he's got, 7 starts with double-digit strikeouts this year. And Arizona has some dangerous bats, but they can strike out a lot. So I think he's the one guy in this ace tier that's going to go not ignored, but generally under-owned, and he has very similar upside to the other arms, but I think more risk, certainly.
Yeah, I really worry about the strikeout upside because, even in that July kind of rut, he didn't give up, I think, maybe 1 or 2 home runs in that whole month, but his strikeout rate was only 21%. So that worries me. We're looking at June; it was 24.9, and it's coming down, and it keeps coming down, and that worries me a little bit. But like you said, you're gonna have to take a shot on some guys here, in tournaments, and Price does have that upside. I do think that we can look at some of these Arizona bats against him too.
Yeah, it's sort of both sides of this are definitely tournament only for me. But yeah, Price, even when Price is on, when he's on his game, he throws so many strikes that guys can get a good swing on him. So certainly Goldschmidt, Castillo hits the ball really hard against lefties. Tomas hits the ball really hard. I think you could definitely take a shot. And, if this last little 4-start stretch is real, that he's struggling, then you'll get pretty low ownership on some pretty high upside bats.
Yeah, I think Goldie's definitely in play here. As you mentioned, this is tournament talk only here, both sides. Castillo, he's supposed to come back from paternity leave tonight, and Tomas still dealing with that injury. I think it's a neck injury. I know he missed Thursday's game, but that's something to pay attention to because if he's out, you could see Drury in there or Bourne, one of these lefty bats.
Yeah, they might play Ricky Weeks.
Oh yeah, I forgot Ricky Weeks.
Really hitting lefties well, surprisingly. But yeah, depending on who gets it, I think Drury is a reasonable play if he's in there as well.
Boston side, everybody's in play here, right? Top 5, 6, 7, whoever you want to play.
Yeah, the whole team is in play. I think, the guys like Pedroia and Bogarts are always guys that I don't really like unless I'm stacking. Just their style of play. You're hoping they get 3 singles. I mean, they do. Everyone has a little power on this team, but I would want to take. A Hanley Ramirez and a Mookie Betts. I would even play the lefties, Ortiz and Bradley, knowing that, Corbin's going to get knocked out of this game. Ortiz can hit lefties anyway if they don't give him the night off. Bradley's not bad against lefties. So that's a thing you can do if you're stacking is take one of the lefties just to be a little different. But yeah, this whole lineup whoever's in there, all 9 of them are going to be worth a shot.
You know who I like? You mentioned taking one of the lefties as kind of a low-owned guy. I think Aaron Hill will go overlooked in this matchup. He's 6,800, and we want a righty bat with some pop, and Aaron Hill actually has some pop.
Yeah, he can still play. People forget how great he was 3 or 4 years ago. This guy was a superstar, and that was kind of fluky. And he's older, and it's not like he's something special, but he's still pretty good. He's got a little power. He's not striking out a lot. I think that's fine. We'll have to see how they set up the lineup. That'll kind of determine who you want.
Yeah, it just depends if Mookie's back with the calf injury. I don't expect Ortiz to play here. He was dealing with a shin injury. He played Thursday, and I think I think they give him the day off here after playing Thursday night. Angels at Cleveland. Carlos Carrasco, Tyler Skaggs. I have no interest in Skaggs, but Carrasco, another one of these guys that might have a little bit of upside here.
Yeah, Carrasco's been tough. He's supposed to be this big upside strikeout guy. He did get 9 in his last start. He had one start in the middle of the year where he dominated Toronto. But otherwise, he's really been disappointing with the strikeouts. He hasn't been bad, but he's not been the guy I thought he was going to be. And his strikeout rate for the year is only a little over 23%. He definitely has that upside, but I've gotten less interested in fishing for it. And, the Angels strike out less than anybody. So I would probably rather go with Price than Carrasco tonight. But he's a super talented guy, and he's one of those any given day can have the 10 strikeout game, but I don't think I'm going to chase after it against the Angels.
All right, let's talk bats. We'll start with the Angels here against Carrasco. We don't really love Carrasco, but I'm not going to go out of my way to pick on him here either.
No. I would say don't play anyone with, of course, Trout is always in play, and Calhoun, I suppose, if he's still cheap. I didn't look at his price yet, but this is not something I'm interested in very much either.
Now, Cleveland, on the other hand, I think we actually have some options here against Skaggs. Anybody that you like?
You always have to look at Napoli against a lefty. He hits the ball so hard. I think he's over 50% hard hits, 250 ISO. He hits fly balls. He would kind of be the first guy. A lot of people like to play Rajai Davis against lefties, and I think that's pretty viable. Carlos Santana, I like quite a bit. I think those are the guys I'm targeting most.
Yeah, I don't think we can leave out Jose Ramirez either. This guy, just out of nowhere, he's just been insane. And I don't really look into home road splits for hitters too much, but his home splits are just nuts compared. And his away splits aren't bad, but his home splits are just insane this season. So I think Jose Ramirez is another guy that we can look at, and he's hitting .330 against left-handed pitching this year.
Yeah, he has been picking up multiple hits almost every game recently. I find it hard to click on his name when he's expensive. But the numbers do say he's good against lefties. I still just don't love the guy. I don't feel like he's this good. But you're right, he's been hitting the ball really well. Certainly if you're stacking, I would probably want to get him in there.
Yeah, double digits in a bunch of games. 7 out of his last 10. We're recording the podcast on Thursday night. We don't know what he's doing on Thursday night, but everybody in Cleveland is scoring against the Angels on Thursday night, so I'm sure he'll be up there once again. White Sox at Miami. Carlos Rodon against Andrew Cashner. Either one of these guys pique your interest?
Yeah, this one's a little bit interesting. Rodon has started showing that upside again. He's got 7 or 8 strikeouts in 5 of his last 7 starts, I think. He does kind of giving up some home runs as his weak spot, but it's a good ballpark for that. And only a couple of guys you would be scared of. I think just from a strict strikeout upside versus price, I do think he's might be worth a tournament play.
Okay. Cashner on the other side of this game?
That one is a little more difficult. He has been like he had that little stretch of like 3 games where he looked like, hey, he's back. He's an ace. But even when he's good, outside of those 2 games that I just have to think were fluky, he hasn't been a strikeout guy. Early in his career, he was supposed to be this big strikeout guy, but really we're looking at below average 3 years in a row in strikeouts. So I like the matchup at home against the White Sox, but I'm certainly not going to play him in cash games, and I don't really like his upside quite enough for tournaments.
I think I'm with you. His price, I don't know. I think people might end up on him because of his price. Like, really cheap on FanDuel and 10-4 over on Fantasy Draft. Like, super cheap. And you get a pitcher on DraftKings in the 5K range. People end up on those pitchers. So I think people end up on him. Like, I might even have a share or 2 just because he's so cheap there. But on FanDuel, I'm not going there on FanDuel, but
yeah, I don't think it's terrible as an SP2 because he's not going to be bad. I think there's a pretty good floor for him. So yeah, if you need to save at your second pitcher on Fantasy Draft at that price, I think that's reasonable.
Let's talk bats in this game. Stanton, he didn't play Wednesday because his hip was sore. That was 2 days ago. Kind of have to pay attention because if he's out, then you might actually be able to look at Rodon a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it's really only Stanton and Ozuna that you're worried about from that lineup against lefties. I mean, certainly Prado can get some hits, but, power-wise, it's really just those 2 guys. And, yeah, it changes the whole complexion of the lineup, if he's in or not. If he is, I think you can take a Stanton or an Ozuna as a one-off and look for a home run. Otherwise, I just think there are better spots.
Prado, where he's cheap, I don't mind him in cash games because you want to talk about a guy against left-handed pitching. He leads baseball against left-handed pitching with minimum 100 plate appearances and on-base percentage at .513 this year. So in cash games, if you want a safer option, but you got to get him where he's cheap, and that's tough for nowadays because people actually have caught on to Prado against lefties.
Yeah, I feel like he's been priced up. He's 4,400 on DraftKings, which is too cheap, and I think he's $3K on FanDuel, which is reasonable, but it's not cheap. You used to be able to get him in the mid-2s where he was a good play. I think you're right. He's definitely a cash game type of hitter. He's got really elite plate skills, but he's not cheap anymore.
Now, looking at the White Sox here against Cashner, we like lefties against Cashner. Is this a spot we could look at maybe Adam Eaton and our boy Melky Cabrera?
Yes. It's definitely only lefties. And those guys are really unexciting to play, but they're both good hitters. And you would expect some production out of them. So, yeah, I don't mind them. I think who was the other guy I was looking at? If Deontay Navarro catches, he's one of those guys I don't usually mind punting with. But pretty much it's just Eaton and Cabrera for me.
Every day I give out 3 guys on Fantasy Draft that I like that are under 8K, and I feel like Melky Cabrera is just too cheap here on this slate. I think he's a guy you can definitely target at 6,800. That's going to be a spot that I'm going to target Melky Cabrera. Oh, Detroit at Texas. Yu Darvish, Anibal Sanchez. Darvish, we always worry about how many pitches will he throw. Will he get up there in pitch count? And I think it's pretty clear that, we're not going to see him throw 110 pitches this season.
He has been so great, even at 90 pitches. Like, it's
right.
Pretty unbelievable. You expect a guy to struggle a little bit coming off a long injury, and he just came right out of the gate and has been just elite with his stuff. I think his strikeout rate is second only to Fernandez. The swinging strikes are over 13%. He's not really walking guys. and he's gone at least 6 innings, four starts in a row, even without having a high pitch count. I think Detroit's a tough team. It's a tough ballpark. Like, there's lots of reasons to think you shouldn't play him. But I think you just have to consider playing this elite of a strikeout arm in tournaments.
Yeah, I think he's in playing tournaments too. It's in Texas. We always worry about, it's probably going to be hot in Texas. I'm pulling that up real quick. Rangers ballpark, 101 at first pitch. So we always worry about that. But I think that you're right. I think the strikeout upside is definitely here. And, he's facing Sanchez, who, as much as we want to pick on Sanchez, like, he hasn't been awful lately.
There is really nothing weirder than Sanchez's game log. I mean, this guy has a 5.88 ERA, and it's almost like, and it's kind of like deserved, like he's that bad, and yet he's got 10 strikeouts in 2 of his last 4 starts. I'm not sure. Like, and he used to be a really good pitcher. It's not like this just totally came out of nowhere. I think he's the kind of guy you stack against and say, when he's bad, he's really bad. The walk rate is actually kind of respectable this year at 9.2%. That's not good, but it's not terrible. But he's one of those guys that he can be really bad, and you want to just load up against him. But it's hard to pick a one-off against him too, because he can be pretty good. Like he's showing the strikeout upside. So for me, I'm looking at this as you stack Texas, or maybe you just don't play it.
I'm going to play a one-off in Prince Fielder. Is it too soon? I'm just kidding. Anyway.
How much does he cost?
Yeah, free.
How many homers does he have?
Not enough. All right, let's talk bats here. Detroit against Darvish. Anything that you like here?
I think you got to say no. I mean, yeah, they've got so many good hitters. You can certainly always consider a Cabrera or Victor Martinez. But basically, no, I'm not going to take any Tigers bats.
The only reason that I would play Miggy here on this slate is because he's going to be under 5% owned, and he's Miguel Cabrera.
Yeah, that's the case for it. And, you can hope that with it being so hot in Texas and Detroit being a pretty good team, if Darvish only goes 5 innings, you would certainly want these Tigers bats against 4 innings of the bullpen. So that's another, reason to maybe think about it. But they're pretty far down my list.
Moving on to the Texas bats here. Second fantasy draft play under 8K that I just absolutely love here today. And tell me why, Dave, that Ian Desmond is 7,600 on draft today.
I cannot tell you, because that seems too low.
That's too low.
Yeah, he's just really pretty good. I think that's a good call. You want him.
Yeah, and then you mentioned the stack. I definitely think the stack's in play, and you can actually get a good stack now. Yeah, Texas brought in a couple good bats there at the trade deadline. Like, this stack is really solid now.
Yeah, it's really a pretty loaded lineup. We don't know exactly how things will set up, but with them bringing Beltran and Lucroy in and Chu coming back, I mean, really 1 through 9 is really, really loaded. I think you could go with any part of the order for a stack.
All right, let's move on to the next game. Kansas City at Minnesota. Ventura against Gibson. Nothing that I really love here as far as these pitchers go.
No, Ventura's kind of a little bit like Anibal Sanchez in that every once in a while he's got that great start, but he's more down than up. He's walked 4 guys through his last 4 starts. I'm not. There's no way I'm going to use him on a slate like this.
Yeah, I'm with you. Unless we see a really watered down Minnesota lineup. I know Sano's dealing with an injury. If this lineup's really watered down, maybe, because this is one of the better weather games as far as pitchers go. So maybe, but I think I'm with you. I just don't know. On a 14-game slate, we've talked about so many pitchers that we like that I just don't think this is a spot we target Ventura.
Yeah, he's supposed to be this upside guy. He's got a 17% strikeout rate and like 8.5% swinging strikes. He's just not been good, and I'm not going to go there.
No interest for Gibson, I'm guessing.
Yeah, like he's actually a pretty okay real life pitcher, but even when he's at his best, he's not really a fantasy pitcher. He's a low strikeout ground ball guy, and he hasn't been at his best, so I have no interest.
Let's start with Kansas City bats. Anything stick out to you here?
It's really tough to ever play any Royals bats these days. I just don't think you can play Hosmer at that loaded first base position, even though he's a good hitter. There's just not the kind of upside, and it's ground ball against ground ball. Same thing with Morales. Morales, I think I tend to like more than other people, but it's ground ball versus ground ball. I don't think I'm going to play any Royals bats, even if I think they're going to score 5 runs. I'm not going to try to find them.
I'll throw a scenario at you real quick here. Paulo Orlando, Jared Dyson hit 1 and 2 on Thursday night. We don't know if that's obviously going to happen again, but Kurt Suzuki, 42 stolen bases allowed and only 11 caught stealing this season. So if we get one of these speedy guys up towards the top of the order, like I have some interest there.
I think I might take Dyson. Dyson's the guy that can steal 4 or 5 bases in a game if he gets on base. I'm assuming Alex Gordon will be back. And if he's hitting leadoff, he's actually a guy. He's been really cheap. I might consider him, but yeah, Dyson especially. I think he's probably the best stolen base guy in the league. If he played every day, he could be a 100 steal guy. He's faster than I am, Stevie.
Yeah, he's faster than both of us combined.
He's faster than you carrying me on your back.
Yeah, definitely. You want a fun fact? I used to run a 4.40.
Nice.
Yeah, that actually happened a few times. But yeah, that's when I was 170 pounds and threw a 98-mile-an-hour fastball. But that was a long time ago, Dave. Long time ago. Minnesota bats here. I don't think I really love anything here.
No, both. Really, every angle of this game is saying just kind of skip it, pitchers and hitters, which always when you say that, everyone else is saying that. So, maybe you take a shot just on being different with, a Kepler or something, a Vargas. But no, I really don't have much interest in this game.
Yeah, Vargas, cheap upside power type guy. But, Kepler, I like Kepler. I talked about Kepler a lot, but, he's priced so high now. I think he's actually a good hitter. Multi-hits in, 5 of his last 10 games. He's a good hitter. It's just I'm not paying this price tag for him.
Yeah, he's a really good hitter. The power's a little fluky. He's not going to be a 30 home run guy, but he's a really good prospect. He's going to be a good player. I think it's somewhat legitimate, but I'm not expecting this kind of power to continue. So, yeah, I'm really at any kind of high price, I'm not going to pay for him.
Oh, this next game, Cincinnati at Milwaukee, Homer Bailey, Jimmy Nelson. Homer Bailey's back in our lives.
Well, it's about time. It looks like he's not quite ready to be back. He hasn't been terrible. 10 strikeouts and 4 walks, but I think it's going to take him a long time. Yeah, San Diego and Pittsburgh. Yeah, I think we're going to assume he's going to need a little time before he's back. It's been a long time for him, so I'm certainly not going to play him yet.
I'm not playing Jimmy Nelson here either.
No, you are not. I will not allow it.
I'm not playing Brandon Phillips either for everybody that wants to know. Ever.
Good choice.
Ever. Cincinnati side, though, Billy Hamilton's a thing right now.
Yeah. If he gets on base, he's definitely going to steal. And Jimmy Nelson is a guy that lets lefties on base. I think, Votto is a super elite play, and Hamilton is a couple stolen bases waiting to happen. And I think you could even play, you want lefties against Nelson, but I think you could even play Duvall, who has power and hits fly balls against righties. So I expect plenty of runs in this game.
Yeah, Maldonado does not have a good arm. We've seen that almost every time this season. So I really do like Hamilton. It's always obviously about getting on base, but on the road in the leadoff spot, opportunity to get maybe even a fifth at bat here. Like if he gets on, he's stealing 2 bags.
Yeah, and Nelson, he doesn't strike people out, and he'll walk people even that don't want to take a walk. Like he can be really bad with the control against lefties. So I think his on base upside is more than usual.
Picking on Homer Bailey here. Where are we going with these Brewers bets?
I think it's bizarre how low owned Chris Carter always is, and I get it. I mean, he strikes out a lot against righties, but man, this guy is strong. Just like Jared Dyson is faster than me, Chris Carter is stronger than me. Like he can hit home runs just accidentally. But obviously that's a tournament one-off kind of high-risk play. The top of the order, it looks like VR and Arcia are going to be hitting 1-2, and I do like both of them. Certainly you can always play Braun, but I'm interested to see what they do with Scooter Gennett. Like he's been hitting cleanup some days against righties, and he's a pretty good hitter against righties.
Well, I'm glad you say that because he's my third fantasy draft play today. 6,600. He's been hitting in the 4 spot in a game that should have a lot of runs. Homer Bailey, his last full season was 2014. He struggled with lefties in that season. So Scooter Gennett, 6,600. I think he's very cash game playable here.
Yep, I agree. It's really a nice boost for him to be getting the cleanup spot, and I would think with what they have on this team, he should just keep on hitting there against righties.
Yeah, if they're going to continue to hit Arcia and VR in the 1-2 spot, leave Carter in that 5 spot right there behind Braun, and with those 2 guys at the top of the order, you're always getting some RBI opportunities when you're in that 4 spot. So, and you got guys that run like VR. All he has to do is get on base too, and he'll run. So, that's always a boost for your 4 hitter.
Yep.
Seattle at Oakland, Sean Manaea against Ariel Miranda. Any interest in either one of these guys?
A little bit. Miranda is probably going to be an okay pitcher. I think people probably got a little too excited because that first start against Boston was really good, and it's Boston. I guess the answer is no. I'm not going to play either of them, but I wouldn't be surprised if Miranda has a pretty good game. And, he's really come around. He had a really nice stretch of games, but Seattle's just a pretty good team against everybody. And I'm not crazy about using him, but I think it's more likely that this is a low-scoring game, and it may be one of those you could win with one of these pitchers, but I'm not excited about it.
So I'm reading up on Miranda here. He pitched 15 or 17 pitches in Tuesday's 15-inning victory, and they actually are saying that he's probably not expected to start here, and they haven't announced the starter yet.
Well, then don't use him.
Yeah, like I had interest too. Like I was with you. Like I love picking on Oakland now. Like Josh Reddick's gone, I'm on.
Yeah, he's super cheap. I know on FanDuel he's like 59, and I think he's even cheaper on DraftKings, and he's cheap everywhere. So yeah, but yeah, I guess if he's not starting, I did see that he threw those innings, but I hadn't heard.
They're saying it could be Joe Weiland.
Well, let's not use him then.
No. All right. Pay attention to that. Obviously, we're the night before. Listen to the Fantasy Fix podcast, and Siege will actually have the info on that. Manaea here. Any interest?
I'm gonna say no. Like I do really like him as a pitcher, and he's been decent, but he's really got some trouble with righties. And Seattle can put enough good righties in there, and Cano and Seager are good enough against lefties that even with the ballpark, I'm somewhat scared of Seattle enough to probably lay off of it.
Yeah, that boomstick for Nelson Cruz is working right now. Just absolutely on a tear right now. 7 hits in his last 12 at-bats, and small sample sizes, but I like when guys start to get hot.
Yeah, I mean, he's such a thing against lefties. Pretty much most people know by now that's like my favorite play in the world is Nelson Cruz against a lefty. And, Manaea is really been good against lefties, but against righties, he's pretty average at best. So yeah, Cruz and Gutierrez, and if Dejoli plays, whoever plays catcher, I think you can play some of these bats, and it's just enough bats that I'm not going to use Manaea, even though I do kind of like him.
What about see, it's so tough now because we don't know who's pitching for Seattle to talk about Oakland bats. If it's a bad pitcher, look at Chris Davis, Danny Valencia, Stephen Vogt.
Yeah. If it's a righty, Vogt is always in play, and Davis is in play for homer against anybody. Valencia is certainly against a lefty, and against a weak righty is also a home run play. Outside of that, some of these hitters are okay, but they're not the kind of guys you really want to use, like your Crisp and Alonso, and they're fine real-life baseball players, but you're not looking to roster them.
Pittsburgh at Los Angeles taking on the Dodgers. Ivan Nova, Ross Stripling. Any interest here?
I really am a Nova fan, but I just don't think, like we've said a few times, there's so many pitchers today. Like, you're going to need a really big performance out of your pitchers to win a tournament or even a cash game. And Nova's not a upside pitcher, and he does have some risk. So I'm not going to go there tonight, even though I do generally kind of like him. And then Stripling, I can't use Ross Stripling. I don't mean to sound offensive towards Ross Stripling fans, but what's he going to throw? 5 innings, get 4 strikeouts, give up a couple of runs. There's just nothing there, I don't think.
Hold on, Ross Stripling has fans?
There's 4 of them, and 3 of them listen to your podcast.
Oh man, I got a good percentage then.
Yeah, most of the Ross Stripling fans listen.
All right. I'm not picking on the Dodgers right now. Like, I agree. Ivan Nova's not awful, but this Dodgers team is warming up, and that's always good. Like, this offense, like, it's so frustrating because this offense should be doing well, and it's finally starting to get there. And, dude, I don't care what anybody says. I'm playing Yasmani Grandal every day.
Yeah, and, the thing is, he was supposed to turn into a really good hitter. Like, this was a high upside. Like, in season-long games, like 2-3 years ago, people were jumping on him early, waiting for this breakout year. And I guess we're still waiting for a breakout year, but he's had 18 home runs. And he's got power. He'll take a walk. I think there's lots of reasons to like him.
Yeah, I think they said since June 1st he has 12 home runs on the broadcast the other night. Like, at $3K on FanDuel, I'm playing him in cash every day.
Yeah, I think you play him. He's a cash and a tournament play. He's got a floor and some upside. So yeah.
Like Corey Seager, he's dealing with a bruise. Make sure he's in the lineup. If he's in there, I'm sure he'll be fine. Turner, Gonzalez, Reddick, Jock Peterson's hitting the ball well right now. Like, I'm playing the Dodgers here.
Yeah, all these guys look really good on paper against righties. Seager is great. Turner hits righties great. He's hitting the ball hard. Adrian Gonzalez, still really a pretty good hitter. Like, people don't like him anymore because he used to be much better, but he's still pretty good against righties. Reddick, you always play against righties. Peterson can hit a home run. Yeah, I mean, as much as I like Nova, you can take any one of these guys. He'll give up some home runs, he'll give some hits, and he's not going to pitch all day. So, yeah, these bats have a lot to like.
Yeah, and Gonzalez, multi-hits in 4 of his last 5 games. So, like you said, not as great as he once was, but it just all these guys are warming up. So, I like the Dodgers here. And I think Pittsburgh has been one of the most frustrating teams. Like, you want to talk about 2 of the most frustrating teams? They're playing against each other today as far as offensive go.
Yeah, I don't know what's – I mean, we keep waiting for McCutchen to turn it on, and every time you think it's there, it's just not. Polanco's the only guy who's really had a good year. He's kind of the first guy you'd probably look to. I think Marte is a guy I'm always interested in playing. He is stealing a lot of bases, and there's still power in there somewhere. We also don't really ever know what they're going to do with the lineup. They were playing Frazier a lot last week, and now they're not. And then they've put Josh Harrison at leadoff against righties, which doesn't really make sense. So it's pretty hard to get too excited about very many of these bats.
Yeah, they're so frustrating. And like you said, every day the lineup's different, and you just never know what to expect. If you get a cheap guy up towards the top, look at it. Yeah, it's not a bad matchup by any means here. And I don't mind picking on Stripling. He hasn't been awful, but just not a lot of strikeouts. So I think like a guy like Marte might be your target here from Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that he can hit a home run or he can steal 2 bases. He's going to be in the middle of whatever action there is, and probably very few people will have him.
All right, moving on to the last game of the night, Baltimore at San Francisco. Another team that we can just say that's been frustrating is the Baltimore Orioles. I know I didn't really technically play the day slate on Thursday, but I know they scored some runs finally. Matt Cain. Like, we want to pick on Matt Cain here, right?
We really do. Yeah. It's tough in San Francisco. He just seems to just kind of survive. The fly balls tend to stay in the park a little bit more there, but he's not good against righties or lefties. He really just doesn't have any skills left. He can kind of throw strikes sometimes. That's like his skill. I don't know if that's a skill or just a thing that people do. And Baltimore has power to hit it out in San Francisco. So I think we can definitely look for some home runs here. But like you say, they're really up and down. They're kind of like a Houston-type team where even with all that power, it can all go cold at the same time for days at a time. But I would definitely fish for some home runs here.
Oh, Dylan Bundy, man. Like, Dylan Bundy's been a thing. And 11.1% swinging strike rate, 24% strikeout rate. Like, those are solid numbers for a guy that, is pitching for the first time in the big since 2012. Bundy, I don't think I'm going to do it here in San Francisco, but I'm not going to tell you not to.
Yeah, I'm not either. Like, he's completely legit. People that hadn't heard of him before, I mean, this was previously like the top prospect in all of baseball type of guy. And then he just had injuries, and now he's back and he looks like the prospect he was supposed to be. Yeah, it's a tough spot against the Giants. Certainly you'd expect the strikeouts to come down a little bit, but I think he'll be good again. And I don't think it's the worst play.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not going to tell you not to. This is a guy that was drafted 4th overall in the draft in 2011. I think looking at it, I think he got hurt in 2012 because he didn't pitch from 2012 to 2014. So I'm sure there was some type of Tommy John or something along those lines for Bundy.
Yeah, he did. He had Tommy John early on in his career. And then it's just been a bumpy. I think he had another big injury on his way back as well. So, but he looks like the legit ace.
Yeah, this is gonna be a guy we're gonna talk about for the next couple of years. Like, Bundy is actually like legit, like you said. Baltimore bats, it's a tough situation because it is in San Francisco, but man, I'm not gonna be able to be told no about just about any of these guys.
Yeah, certainly your Chris Davis, Alvarez, Trumbo, Machado, Jones, all those guys can homer. Even Scope, even Wieters and Hart. I mean, almost everyone in this team can hit a home run against Matt Cain. I love being able to play Machado at shortstop. And I really like where, the ownership has just fallen off the table for Trumbo. And still nobody's plays Alvarez, even, he just turned red hot. And still nobody was playing him. I think they're all fine as one-offs. So I'm not really probably going to stack Baltimore. They're not a stack kind of a team, and it's not a stacking kind of a ballpark. But you can take 1, 2, 3 even if you want. I'm looking for home runs.
Yeah, Trumbo. And if I do stack Baltimore, I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing for a few weeks now, or ever since they've done the switch. I play Alvarez over Machado in my stack because they're both third base on FanDuel. So I think that if you want to be different in your stack, that's where you would be different.
I do not condone stacking Baltimore without Machado, but you're right on the game theory side of it. Yeah, Machado's he's good
at baseball.
He is good, yeah.
He's good at baseball. Alvarez is like batted ball profile right now is just insane.
Yeah, when he's hot. I mean, man, he's been hitting home runs like they're going out of style.
Giants, anything pique your interest here against Bundy?
I don't really want to pick on Bundy. I mean, of course, Belt and Crawford are always interesting to me against righties, and Posey is always interesting against anybody. But they're pretty far down the list. I don't see myself probably taking any of them.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So that's going to wrap it up here for the game-by-game breakdown. We're going to play some Home Run Derby. But before we play Home Run Derby, we've been talking about these reviews over on iTunes. Go to iTunes, search Roto Grinders. You'll see Daily Fantasy Fix. Leave us a comment and subscribe, and you might be the next person we read their comment. And Fun Hokey says, all I need in the morning is a cup of coffee and the morning grind. Keeps me going until I get home for Grinders Live. So we appreciate the comment, appreciate the love. And Dave, I'm going to appreciate beating you in Home Run Derby today. And you're my guest, so I'm going to let you go first.
I always forget to look at my home runs ahead of time. That's hurting me. I think you're spending all day finding these home runs, and
I spend so much time looking for home runs.
It's all there is. Okay, so I definitely, even though he's not really necessarily a power hitter, I just really want to go with Daniel Murphy.
All right, you went Murphy. I'm taking your boy. I'm taking the boomstick. I'm taking Nelson Cruz.
Yeah, that's too easy. I'm not going to cheat and just take the.
No, trust me. I go contrarian here. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I'm not worried. I'm a little worried, but okay. So let's see who we got here. Who's going to give up a home run? Oh yeah, he is. Let's go with. I'm going to say Pedro Alvarez is the guy who takes Kane deep.
All right, I like that. I'm going to go Will Myers.
Yeah, that
told you.
Gets you back on track. Yeah,
don't worry.
Take the free square and then go a little different. I respect it. I'm going to take somebody there. Looks good. I'm talking vaguely, looking at my piece of paper. Again, kind of like Murphy, not really a home run hitter, but I do think Votto's going to hit a home run.
All right. This next one you might call me a little chalky on, but Mike Napoli might be the hottest hitter in baseball. 2 doubles and a home run on Thursday night. Like, this guy is extreme right now, and I'm going to be playing Napoli quite a bit here on the slate.
Yeah, Napoli against lefties, against anybody right now, but especially against lefties. Yeah, he's really hitting the ball well. And we thought he was done. Like, people were writing him off, like, ready to retire last year, and he's come back with a force.
All right, let's talk pitchers. At the end of the day, if you had to pick one pitcher not named Steven Strasburg and David Price to pick up a win here, doesn't have to score the most fantasy points, but he's going to win. Who do you got?
Going to win looks to me like Carrasco.
All right, Carrasco. That's solid. I think he's going to get plenty of run support, so I can get behind that. I'm going John Gray. I think there's a good chance that I'm going to be really heavy on John Gray, so I have to take John Gray to win.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good call as well.
That's going to wrap it up for the Friday edition of the Morning Grind. If you appreciated Cheese's breakdown here, Cheese, where can they find you? Where can they read your info? Where can they get a hold of you?
Well, you can always find me on Roto Grinders, writing something most days. You can find me on Twitter at DavePotts2. And otherwise, I'm just walking around town. If you're ever in Auburn, Alabama, eating barbecue, you're going to find me.
All right. And are you doing the coaching too?
Yeah, I'm doing coaching for baseball. You can find some information on that at Roto Grinders, or send me a message on there. Yeah, that's been a lot of fun. Talking people through daily research process or stats and lineup construction, things like that.
Yeah, and you're big into the advanced stats, the advanced metrics and stuff. So make sure you guys check him out for that if you enjoyed the podcast today. We'll be back on Monday. Make sure you head on over to iTunes, leave a review, subscribe to the podcast, and good luck in your contest tonight, and we'll see you again then.